Please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Captain's Log, Supplemental. We are close to completing one full wall, which is roughly an IRL 1 brick's worth of ISO cubes. I'm not entirely certain if we need to celebrate or pay royalties to that pesky brick company. If we have to pay them royalties, I'm going to pay them in Ferengi anuses. Hello everyone, welcome to the Halls of Injustice. Today we welcome inmates number 176 to the ISO cubes. Inmate number 176 is going to be with us for what might well be for the rest of his life, because inmate number 176 is a colossal smeghead who thought in his infinite wisdom that he would try and con an entire system that I can fully understand wanting to con, understand does not condone, don't try me, so as to have a better retirement. Not that he needed it, the man was already wealthy from the offset, something which I will go into detail of once I tell you a little bit about this individual. Inmate number 176's name is Lawrence Rudolph. Lawrence Rudolph is going to, well, suffer. As is often the case here at the Halls of Injustice, we're not gentle. He was selected for the ISO cubes because the nature of his crime is quite different compared to what we have usually covered here on this channel. So what we'll do, I will tell you a little bit about who he is, just to paint an adequate picture that he genuinely did not need what he sought after he committed his crime and then went on to commit another crime. We will then talk about the 2 crimes he committed, the trial, sentence, and additional fallout, because there is certainly plenty of that. So just who is inmate number 176, aka Lawrence Rudolph? Inmate number 176, Lawrence Larry Rudolph, is a now 68-year-old man. He had served for most of his career as a dentist and owned one of the biggest dental practices in Pennsylvania. Multiple dental surgeries, in fact. He and his now ex-wife, Bianca Rudolph, had a penchant, a passion for hunting, and would frequent Africa to partake in their hunting activities, paying rather large sums of money to go and use pew-pews on creatures that are endangered. One of their favourite hunting spots was Zambia. The marriage, though, was not a happy marriage, and Lawrence had sought an extramarital affair with dental hygienist Valarie Abbott. As the marriage with Bianca was coming to an end, abruptly you'll understand why soon, the affair with Valarie continued to flourish. Lawrence wanted to spend his retirement years with her and not Bianca. For the sake of context, you need to know one vital detail now. Bianca Rudolph is a Catholic. This is important as it relates to the crime we'll get to soon. Lawrence Rudolph is not Catholic. That will also become apparent soon as well. Another detail I've left out is that they are from the Rudolph family, from Phoenix, Arizona. Much of what happened, including the trial, took place outside of Arizona, and that's because of many factors. Crimes took place in both America and Zambia, but other factors involved included people in Colorado, which is where the trial happened. Rudolph's dental practice near Pittsburgh was valued at $10 million. That is important information because it is used as a form of mitigation for motive. So I guess with that, we should now get to the crimes of Lawrence Rudolph, aka inmate number 176. We will be mentioning Valarie Abbott as well. The reason why is because she is considered later on an accessory and is also punished quite severely for that. Despite marital issues and being close to divorce, Lawrence Rudolph and Bianca Rudolph went to Zambia. They went to Zambia in October of 2016. The reason why is because Bianca Rudolph wanted to, at least once in her life, slay a leopard. It was on her bucket list, and so they went there to acquire this trophy. With this marriage being all but over, they had agreed to stay married, but were free to pursue sexual relations with other people. Seems very counter-Catholic, doesn't it? I guess they did it for the children. The peculiar thing about the marriage is The relationship with Valarie Abbott had been going on for 20 years. I could sit here and poke at the religious aspect of this story, because there is some contradiction here when one associates faith, and it is relevant soon. At 5 AM on October 11th, 2016, gamekeepers and scouts heard a gunshot coming from a cabin. The cabin was that of Larry and Bianca Rudolph's. When they got there, the gamekeepers and the scouts, they found Bianca lying on the floor with a gunshot wound to her chest. Larry was trying to stop the bleeding in his wife's chest, whilst also requesting aid from anyone that would listen. Larry had claimed prior to this gunshot taking place that he was in the bathroom, and when he heard his wife say, "Come here and help me," he then heard the shot. Unfortunately for Bianca Rudolph, she passed away. 2 days later, the Zambian authorities determined that the shooting was accidental. What did not help the process was that Lawrence Rudolph requested an immediate cremation of his wife, something which does go counter to her faith. He cited that they had both agreed to do that anyway, and that it would be easier to transport her back had she been cremated first. This is the ballpark of crime number 1. Crime number 2 concerns the insurance companies who Bianca Rudolph had life insurance policies with. Her life insurance policy was worth $4.8 million. He claimed every last cent of it. From 2016 until his arrest in 2021, he and Valarie Abbott lived a very, very plush, lush, lavish life. There are a number of contradictions within the relationships here. I earlier mentioned that it was alleged that his wife, Bianca Rudolph, was fine with the extramarital affair to Valarie Abbott. Others state that Valarie Abbott had actually given him an ultimatum to leave Bianca. What started the ball rolling in an investigation into him and Laurie by extension was that in 2020, a bartender had heard Lawrence Rudolph yelling at Valarie Abbott. This was at a restaurant in Phoenix. The reason why is because lockdowns had just happened. Lawrence Rudolph was worried his business, his dental practice, was going to take a huge financial hit. When they were arguing, he had said that he killed his wife for her. That was all that was needed for the federal investigators and others to get involved and to start some digging. This digging led to his arrest in 2021. During that time, before the arrest, he embarked on a lavish retirement, using the money from the insurance policies to buy one home each in Arizona and Pennsylvania, buying an Aston Martin DB11 as well as a Bentley Bentayga. Something which the FBI, when they started to investigate, theorized was that much of his life and wealth was actually accumulated fraudulently, and that can be traced back as far as his dental practice, making his patients require root canals by not doing fillings as planned or drilling holes in their teeth while they were asleep in his care. He had also, in an earlier trip to Zambia, collected millions of dollars in disability insurance by shooting his own thumb off. The two main problems is the crime he committed in Zambia, the pressure he placed on local authorities to push forward the accidental conclusion to then allow himself to cremate his wife, so he could then claim the insurance. The crime is murder and insurance fraud. With that, we should go straight to the trial. But he is not the only one standing trial. Valarie Abbott was charged as an accessory to murder, and being an accessory is quite serious. The sentences for that can also be quite lengthy. The trial lasted 3 weeks and was held in Denver, Colorado. The charges that Lawrence Rudolph faced were murder and mail fraud. The reason the trial was held in Colorado is because even though he is not from there, the insurance company is. Lawrence Rudolph's defense argued that Bianca Rudolph may have accidentally shot herself. The prosecutors alleged that Lawrence Rudolph killed his wife to be with Milleron because of the ultimatum. Lawrence Rudolph, when he took the stand, had indicated he had been in an open relationship with his late wife Bianca from the year 2000. When Lawrence Rudolph took the stand, he stated, "I did not kill my wife, I could not kill my wife, I would not murder my wife." In opening statements, the prosecution told jurors that Lawrence Rudolph was overheard blurting out, "I effing killed my wife for you," during an argument at the Phoenix Steakhouse. This was after he learned the FBI was investigating this whole debacle. Lawrence Rudolph denied this. He said that he and Millie Ron were having an argument about their finances and how COVID had affected that and his dental practice. but he was irritated because he said this top concern was the FBI's probe, with him pointing out that actually what he'd said was, now they're saying I killed my effing wife for you. Now that is important. 1 or 2 words changes the meaning of an entire sentence. When I earlier mentioned the ultimatum, and despite the marital issues and twice being close to divorce, Lawrence Rudolph had stated he and his wife agreed to stay married, but were free to pursue those other relationships. Or just other in his case, she did not. Lawrence Rudolph's lawyer, David Marcus, argued that Lawrence Rudolph had no financial motive for murder, as he was worth more than $15 million when she died, and said the insurance payout went into a trust for their children. Which is interesting because, owing to the penalties later, those children, they had 2, are financially harmed because of him. We'll get to that when we get to the sentence. Prosecutors' counter evidence showed that Bianca Rudolph's wounds came from a shot fired from 2 to 3.5 feet away, and say the barrel of the gun was too long for her to have shot herself, and this is because it was initially believed they would be 8 feet away, 8 inches away. In fact, the number fluctuated. There was an 8 in there though, and because of his claim that he was in the bathroom, he could not have committed this crime. The Zambian authorities very quickly moved to accidental. Interestingly, investigators for the insurers, who later paid the $4.8 million, reached the same conclusion. However, this does not mean they're experts in this, which is why you need to rely on very good forensic evidence. I am not going to criticize the Zambian authorities on that, but I will point out, if an opportunity presented itself to mask intent, the opportune moment would be to do it with a system that may not be as ironclad or as thorough as the one for the country you are now serving time in, for the additional crime that you are later found guilty of. On top of the first one, of course, we are not trying to compare the two. After 3 weeks, Lawrence Rudolph, inmate number 176, was found guilty of murder and guilty of fraud. Laurie Milliron was also found guilty. She was found guilty of providing false and misleading testimony to a grand jury about the money and the nature of her relationship to Lawrence Rudolph. In an intercepted phone call obtained by NBC's Dateline, Laurie Milliron told Lawrence Rudolph, "I didn't expect at 65 years old that I was going to have a new career." He replied, "You should look for a new boyfriend while you can." She answered back, "Honey, I'm a convicted felon that's appealing." He then replied, "Well, I just wanted to tell you I love you." She replies, "Take care of yourself. Never, never give up, please." But he admitted, "It's not about giving up, Laurie. It's just about facing reality. I'm a dead man. I'm going to die in prison, and I don't want to take you with me or anybody else. It's not fair." Just before we get to the sentence, I should add, she was found not guilty on 3 counts of perjury. While Lawrence Rudolph maintained his innocence after being found guilty, there is a consequence we're now going to get into with the sentence that do concern the son and daughter of Lawrence and Bianca Rudolph. Lawrence Rudolph, inmate number 176, found guilty of murdering his wife on an African safari, was sentenced to 17 years in prison. He was also sentenced to 20 years for filing fraudulent life insurance claims, which will run concurrent to the murder sentence. He was ordered to pay $4.8 million in restitution, a fine of $2 million. He was also made to forfeit $8 million worth of assets gained from the life insurance money. Now this would have been higher, the fine and all the assets seized, but his children had managed to successfully convince the judge that by continuing to do so, they, Julian and Bianca Rudolph, would end up being more financially harmed through those same penalties, which was a letter that they had sent to the judge, which had convinced the judge to no longer continue to financially punish Lawrence Rudolph. My view, by the way, is that while this is their inheritance, and most of that money was made legally, yes, regardless of the earlier claims of fraud throughout the entire career, you'd have to prove all of that first. It gets quite difficult, and the investigation and the trial would have been a lot longer. The prevailing point should be, the judge can take as much as they bloody well want. If they want everything, and some, they should. He murdered his wife of 30 years. He fraudulently claimed life insurance. He has claimed, still claims he's innocent and will be appealing the sentence. His mistress, Laurie Milliron, was found guilty by the same jury of being an accessory after the fact to murder, obstruction of a grand jury, and 2 counts of perjury, which meant she got 17 years in prison, along with a fine of $250,000. Lawrence's attorney, John Dill, believes the prison sentence is longer and excessive, and vows to appeal because the convictions were merely based on Milliron's perjury charges and do not implicate her in the execution of the crime. Of course, in the case of these appeals, I will update you should they be successful in the slightest. If not, both of you can enjoy the rest of your lives, because you're both in your 60s, it's going to be a while, in an ISO cube. Best get comfy, or at the very least, get used to the idea of stepping on and sleeping on a Lego-esque brick home.